Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are carrying on our look at the chess.com CCC 21 Rapid Challenger match between Leela-Zero and new kid on the block Torch. Well, I've shown a number of very nice Torch wins so far. So it's time to redress the balance just a little bit and give you a very fine Leela win. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, in general, I sort of felt that probably if you're looking at the total of most attractive wins, probably in this match it was Torch that edged it. But this game I really liked from Leela. It's a really excellent illustration of its style, and yeah, it just does something a little bit different to other engines in a rather different way, and it yeah, when it works it just looks fantastic. So let's have a look at this. The opening was a modern knight c3 a6. H4 gets thrown in, H5. Yeah, I mean, always a little bit of a concession for black to have to play H5 in the modern, because the G5 square is very pleasant for white, either for a bishop or for a knight. Knight F3, D6, Knight G5. The knight goes there straight away. We're still in the CCC book here. Knight C6, Bishop E3, Knight F6, F3, and then castles, and that's the end of the book. Yeah, I mean, I'd be sort of thinking straight away about, how could I go G4 as quickly as possible? But Leela does things just a little bit more quietly. Well, actually, after Queen to D2, then E5 was played by all the engines, just really wanting to stake a claim in the centre. And after D5, playing Knight D4. And the idea is really, well, this is a pawn sacrifice, but not really. After takes, you couldn't do that because knight takes c4 and rook e8 would be rather embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, the idea is that basically if you can't take that knight, then a kingside attack will be a little bit more tricky, and well, black will start getting counterplay as well with queenside pawn moves if you go queenside. So what Leela does is something just very typical. That knight on d4 looks great. But in contrast to a King's Indian, where the c-pawn would be on c4, in a modern, white hasn't committed the c-pawn, which means that it's quite easy to get rid of this knight on d4. So knight d1 played, and well, black's got nothing better than to retreat that knight. So c6, c3, knight b5, a4, knight c7. So it looks as if black has wasted a lot of time, and in a way that is true, but of course, by forcing white to play, or by tempting white to play knight d1 and then c3 and then a move like a4, essentially that's made any sort of plan involving queenside castling to be much less attractive. And that means that that a kingside attack from white then is going to be more difficult to achieve. So yeah, in some ways this maneuver has achieved something. I think the only downside to it is that, well, this knight on c7 is pretty rough, really. It's covering the e6 square, I mean, on one side, so maybe that's helping black to get an f6 or f5. But the scope is pretty limited, really. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag for black. But obviously, yeah, beggars can't be choosers, and I think this maneuver to get a knight d4 and to at least keep a kingside attack from white at bay, I think that's proved generally effective. So there's a threat against the d5 pawn, so we transpose back into a King's Indian same-ish structure now with c4, and black has to decide what to do here. So Torch decided to play the move knight d7 here. It's quite interesting. Yeah, both Stockfish and Dragon were quite keen on a5. It can help you play maybe knight a6 into b4 or knight a6 into c5, and stops white from playing a5 itself, clamping down on the queen side. Yeah, there was a nice game of Stockfishes here. So knight c3, bishop d7, bishop e2, knight a6, castle queenside, knight c5, and now, yeah, as always, the engine surprising you by taking on c5. Yeah, I mean, there was this game. What was this game? was it Stockfish Eagle? I think it was, where a surprising bishop takes c5. No, sorry, it was a game of Leela's where a surprising bishop takes c5 took place. And here once again, I'm sort of looking at it and thinking, nah, really, this should not be a good idea to give up all the dark squares in your position. But, you can't really argue with success. And if you have a look at what Stockfish manages to do, it's pretty impressive. So g4. Rook ad8, rook g1, rook e8, rook h2, bishop h6, queen d1, rook e7, and you sort of think, well, how is white going to break through here, really? Everything sort of looks nicely together. But Stockfish takes on h5, plays f4 as a sacrifice, knight f4, h5, and despite having no control over the kingside dark squares, really, white's just managed to open things up, and after f6, d takes c6 was particularly nasty with a threat of queen d6 here, and fg takes, knight d5, and here Dragon didn't want to take on d5. We just go e takes d5 there, and the king side's very porous, so played rook d5 and e4. Got some counterplay, but still, this was just ended up being very good for white. So that was quite interesting. Again, I'm just getting shocked all the time by moves like bishop takes c5, but it's seeming to work. So I think I'm going to have to recalibrate myself there. So knight d7 was played by Torch there. Not really worrying about a move like d takes c6. I think the idea would be to play knight c5, aiming for b3, and otherwise you're getting hold of you're able to transfer a knight to d4 via e6 to d4. Losing a pawn is not really so worrying under those circumstances. But what Leela does is very unusual, actually, because all of the other engines wanted to keep the pawn on a4 and do something. Again, I mentioned that Dragon 3.3 seems to be finding an awful lot of different ideas, and it was being quite creative here. b4 was one idea, a5, c5 that it played against Stockfish. And this got very interesting. Takes, knight e6. But ba5, queen a5 takes, bishop b5, knight f6, knight f2. Yeah, quite interesting somehow. Looks pretty promising, but somehow Stockfish managed to neutralize that. But just with ideas like bishop b6 and then maybe invading on the c file. Yeah, it did seem quite an interesting idea. What else was there? I think queen c2 was Stockfish's idea. Just anticipating knight c5 there. Rook b8, knight c3. The knight returns to its best spot. Takes, b5, and g4 then. And this was quite interesting. I wasn't 100% sure about it. You've gone knight c3, and then you're going back to d1. But Black's big problem really is that having played f6, the kingside light squares are really, really weak. You're going to just play g takes h5, and knight c5 takes, rook g1, and then rook a7. Rook d7, f4. Somehow Black ended up getting hit on both sides. Bishop e2's coming in, or even queen e2 hitting the pawn on h5. Quite tricky somehow. So and Black's counterplay is not really, not really coming yet. So interesting. It's not wouldn't have been my first thought, but this plan of just putting the pieces back on their normal squares again and then playing g4 turned out to be very effective. But Leela actually went for a complete change of pawn structure, and I always like these things. I always like when Mark Dvoretsky used to call it transformation of advantages, and often gave examples where one advantage, like a material advantage, got converted back into a positional advantage. And here, Leela just says, okay, well, I can have a good version of this pawn structure, but I could also have a different pawn structure that's very promising, and plays the move a5. So what is the point of here? Well, after f6, knight h3, knight c5, rook a3, c takes d5. Leela's idea isn't to take on d5 with the c pawn, when knight b5 is a little bit awkward. Both engines thought that Black should be fine after that. You have to play something like bishop b5 and then a b5, and we can do stuff like b6 and break open the queen side somehow. But no, what Leela wants is to play the move e takes d5. And well, actually, we're back into some sort of Najdorf pawn structure. But in the Najdorf, it's always, really important. You get these pawns on c4, d5 very soon. Yeah, you want to be able to get him b4, c5 quickly. And black often plays the move a5 to stop that, and b6 as well. Here, having played the move a5, well, these pawns are here already. You're going to get him b4. You're going to have a mobile queenside pawn structure. So Leela's just saying that, this Najdorf pawn structure, where black can't put any resistance on the dark squares, I'm just going to pile through with b4, c5. This is really, really promising. So I'm going to go for that. It's a very nice judgment. It's really, really nice. And of course, having this pawn on c4 means this knight can't get active. So this knight's really passive. It's can't get to e6, can't get to b5, and of course this knight's going to get driven away with b4. The interesting thing is that Leela takes forever before playing b4. I know for myself, I would have just played b4 in the flash straight away. But Leela sort of sees that, I can take all my time to do it, and Leela does, as is her wont. So bishop h3, rook h3, f5 played by Torch. Not necessarily the move you'd want to play. Swapping off the light squared bishop, because obviously there are going to be weak light squares. These pawns will be weak in an ending, and the e6 square is weak. Also, g6, f5. But you haven't got enough space for your position, so you need to do something there. So knight f2, knight e8, and g4 from Leela. And this is a very crucial moment. Basically, black has to decide what sort of pawn structure am I going to have on the king side here. Do I want to allow g takes h5, or do I want to do something else? And Stockfish seemed to think that Torch chose wrong here, because Stockfish was getting a reasonable amount of success by defending like this. I think that's fairly understandable, to be honest. You open the f file, you get a bit of counterplay, get the e4 square. The problem is that you open up this diagonal, so this bishop could get very active. But the white king's in the center here, so maybe some chances. It's still very, very risky. When I was trying this, Dragon was sometimes playing knight f2, but knight h6 was also a favorite. And then this move h5, and then bishop e2, which is obviously in potential very nasty. We've opened up the h file, and the king's sort of caught there by the knight on h6. So queen e8, knight g4, rook f5, knight f2, quite unusual, just coming back like that. e4 and then bishop g4. And, it's a bit tough to still defend the queen side. So queen e5 was being played there. Queen e2, rook f8, takes, and queen takes. And, it's a pretty sharp position. In principle, Stockfish was winning a number of these, and, doing pretty well. But still, black feels like there's counterplay. You get the king out of the way, then this knight becomes free. You've got this open diagonal. Maybe even a knight d3 can be played as a sack, or even the knight can come back. Certainly as a human player, I'd be I wouldn't be feeling that this is going to be easy to keep control of, even if I thought probably I should be quite a bit better here as white. Feels like some sort of compensation. So that, I think, would have been the best way, because after the move that Torch plays, which is queen e7, Leela just plays a beautiful game now, just keeping control and just playing it really nicely. So takes played, fixing that pawn structure. Got a weak pawn on h5 now, and also some weak light squares there. So bishop g5, queen f7, and rook g3. The bishop was played to g5 just to avoid f4 after rook g3, and of course very nice just to activate the rook there. Do notice that Leela's kept the king in the center there. It's really not spending any time defending it, just always anticipating that the center is not going to get opened, so no worries there yet. King h8, and now I really like the next few moves of Leela. In all fairness, in similar positions, both Dragon 3.3 and Stockfish do something similar, but it was somewhat unexpected to me. I was thinking of king side attacks, maybe targeting this pawn somehow, And Leela just decides that actually the positional advantage is probably enough to be winning, the whole queenside advantage there. And so Leela just starts draining the life from black's position by exchanging off pieces. Exchange the opponent's active pieces, leave him with passive pieces. That's what we saw with AlphaZero, a whole chapter in Game Changer, and also in Silicon Road. And that's exactly what Leela does. So bishop h6 here, queen f6, takes, and now maybe you want to pause the video, just guess Leela's next move, and that's queen g5. So yeah, we're going to exchange off the queens here, just drain off any life that black has, any sort of hope of counterplay black might have had, and then afterwards b4's coming in, and we're going to roll through on the queen side. So rook a8, king d2, finally the king moves just to get out of the e file, and well, you'll notice that the rooks here are very nicely placed. I mean, if e4, well, we top off the queens first and then play f4, and then the rooks are stopping any sort of counterplay with e3. So very nice, nicely played there. Rook e7 and knight h3. And this was another nice move from Leela, because I was just sort of assuming, okay, the knight's coming into g5, going to make use of that outpost. But in actual fact, that's kind of the idea, but it's not the only idea. And in actual fact, in the game, Leela's knight never makes it to g5. So knight d7. Yeah, Torch having big problems just finding good squares for the knight there. Queen takes f6 finally, rook f6, and now rook b3. I mean, I would have played b4 20 moves ago, and I would be playing it now. But Leela's just got a nice idea here: rook b3, knight c5, rook c3. The idea is b4 is unstoppable. So I will get in b4 with my same gain of tempo, but the rook will be supporting the pawn rather than being on a3. It's just, ultra precision really. So rook c7 played, b4, knight d7, and now I was expecting knight g5, and Stockfish and Dragon are all doing it, and it's very good. It's a very good square for the knight. But Leela's move is even nicer. Plays this move f4. So using the knight on h3 to support that, and after king h7, then we get fe5, knight e5, and knight f4. Black didn't want to play d takes c5 because that makes it really easy to play c5 and d6. So knight takes c5, but now Leela's knight comes to f4, and this is an even better square than g5 because it's doing the same thing of attacking the e6 square, but it's defending the pawn on d5, which makes c4 to c5 easier, and it's also attacking the pawn on h5. It's just beautiful, ultra precision really, and ultra optimization of the pieces, and yeah, that's just how Leela plays all these positions, and it's different to how Stockfish and Komodo Dragon and Torch convert these positions, because convert it they would. That's not the doubt, but it's just the way that it's done just shows another facet of chess, which is again, it's that thing that makes you marvel really, that you can have 3600 engines, 3 or 4 of them, and they can all find slightly different ways of playing a position and turning it into a win. So after knight g4, bishop d3 played. I mean, I would be thinking, right, c5 now, right? c5. But what Leela does is really nice as well. So c5 happens. Rook e7, rook g2. This is a lovely move as well. And the point is that it's I've often talked about it in the context of the AlphaZero Stockfish 8 games, that we noticed that AlphaZero, when it had put a piece on a good square and then it had completed its purpose, it sort of didn't wait for it to be driven away or forced to move away and then move it to a good square. It often just straight away moved it to a good square. It was very concrete. It had finished with the purpose. That purpose was achieved. On to the next purpose. And well, the modern engines, they do all of this. And this is Leela doing this, because on the G file, the rook's blocked by the knight, not doing anything there anymore. So the rook is moved away, and rook e2. And this is another bit of, draining the life from the opponent's position, because the rook on e7 is the most active one on the open file. So let's exchange it. And so knight e5 played by Torch. not wanting to give that. And now bishop c2. We've got some more optimization here. The bishop on d3 was good, but Leela has an even better square for it, a4. Cutting across the rook there and just threatening, supporting c5 to c6 and then also b4 to b5. So you might have thought that's enough optimization. Surely we can go for something. But Leela's got more plans. King c2. This king's coming round to b3. So it'll be ready to come into c4 eventually, or, you know, when this happens, the king can follow up to b4. It's really, really lovely, you know, unhurried style. And I mean, some human players manage to do this, right? Karpov, Carlsen, but never as well as this, you know. It's never so smooth like this. So knight g6 played by Torch. You've got to do something at some stage. c6 would be very good here. This is what Stockfish is doing. Takes and pushing through. But Leela thinks, why not play bishop d7? If we've got the bishop on d7, it's even more active than a4. We're attacking. We're stopping a knight moving to e8. We're stopping a knight moving to c8. Isn't that lovely? Aren't I having a good time here? So d takes c5, bc5. Not what black wants to do. It gives white the possibility of d6 on top of it. But you've got to do something, right? Rook f8. And now, are you going to push the c pawn? No, you're not. King c4. The other nice thing about king c4 now that you've had d takes c5, b takes c5, is that you've got rook b3 attacking rook b7, even rook b3 to b6, forcing the king to go back. It's just all this optimization non-stop. Rook d8, bishop a4 from Leela. So just temporary retreating. You're going to go rook b3 soon, and the bishop will be back when it wants to. So knight g6 played, and takes, and rook b3. So hitting the b7 pawn. Yeah, the bishop's covering, so you can't go rook d7. Rook here, well, you'd go c6 with the pin. So f4 from Torch. Rook takes b7, king f6, bishop c2. Yeah, why rush? Why rush? Just get the bishop active again. Knight e8, rook b6, and bishop d1. Lovely move. Just attacking the pawn in h5, stopping this one from advancing. Knight f6 and d6. And knight g4, c7 was good enough here. Knight e5, king d5. Obviously, if you'd taken on here, I think, what are we going to do here? Probably take on g4 and then go c7. That's going to be good enough. So, yeah, Torch played knight e5, king d5, f3, but after c7 it was all completely hopeless. And Leela mated 11 moves later. So there we are. That's a winning game from Leela. I felt I had to show, I need to show a few winning games from Leela because Leela did actually win the match. But as I said, I'm drooling over Leela's play at the TCC. But somehow I felt in this Torch Leela match that yeah, Torch played some absolutely gorgeous games there. You know, so whereas Leela's wins, I think Leela's really excelled in this Torch match by defending so amazingly. You know, but the wins felt a little bit more routine, but just Leela was managing to defend some incredible positions. So yeah, no. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that game. I mean, I really loved this decision to change the pawn structure. You know, really loved that very much. And then there were, you know, as the game progressed, you know, there was some lovely Leela touches there. You know, this draining the life from the opponent's position by these exchanges. And you know, the delaying of b4, you know, and this sort of hyper accuracy when just playing rook b3, you know, getting the same position but with a rook on c3 rather than a3, you know, always winning a tempo. And then this idea, instead of, you know, just doing the obvious, putting the knight on a great outpost, get an even better outpost, you know, one that does exactly the same but attacks some more stuff and defends some more stuff. And yeah, you know, these moves like rook g2 to e2 as well, really nice. You know, seeing that a piece that once was doing an incredible job has now fulfilled its purpose, regroup it straight away, move it into a new position and keep on draining the life from the position, and it keeps on going on, just putting pieces on better and better squares, and not needing to see the win immediately, just saying, well, eventually my pieces will get into such good squares that the win will just fall into my lap. And that is a very powerful way of playing in human chess as well. And Leela showing how it should be done, really. So there we are. Hope you really enjoyed that. If you liked it, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about the channel, get them to subscribe too. And take a look at my new books, Reengineering the Chess Classics and Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, full of games like this, and really structured and organized. The videos may be a little bit more chaotic, just point out themes as they come along. The book's always quite structured, taking a whole chapter to look at a theme like that. So really a very good way to learn this stuff, for use in your own games. And otherwise, thanks very much for watching. Keep the comments running. Always enjoy, getting comments and trying to respond to them as quickly as I can. And hope to see you at the next videos. Thanks for watching.